Marathon on Eurosport with Nike.
Hello and a very warm welcome from me, Tim Hutchings, to the 9th Los Angeles Marathon. Conditions just about perfect for the 19,000 competitors down there lined up on the streets. As temperature, well, it's 14 degrees centigrade, normally up there in the mid to high 20s. In the past, that weather has made the conditions very difficult for the competitors in LA, but today, everything good. You had a quick glimpse just then of Ahmed Salah, the second fastest man ever from Djibouti. There you are, an indication of the conditions. That 80% humidity could make it a little difficult for them. The wind not expected to be a factor, and as you can see, a slight chance of rain. But believe me, that's considerably better than the athletes have had to run in before in Los Angeles. Ahmed Salah amongst this very small elite field. You can see Garcia there with the beard from Mexico as the mayor, the Orden of Los Angeles, along with Muhammad Ali, gets the race underway. Ali, very, very popular in LA, makes a habit of turning up for the start of this race. Usual glory grabbers, sprinting away for the first few hundred yards. But as I said, a fairly small elite field lined up here. Remember, London is in just a few weeks' time, and the very next day is the Boston Marathon. Those two of the biggest marathons in the world, along with New York and I guess Berlin now. And Los Angeles, in the world rankings, if you like, for marathons, comes somewhere between 6 and 12, I suppose. It's what you would call a second-tier marathon, and I think the quality of the field today reflects that very much. It's a shame because it is a fast course. Course record here is 2:10.19. The women's record is 2:26.23. And any course that can provide times below 2:11 is one to attract top athletes under normal circumstances. Well, of that 19,000 athletes start, only some 25 men in the elite field, only 6 in the women's elite field, so we understand. And we go now in this highlights program straight to Paul Pilkington, who led from the gun. Pilkington pumped out a pace of 5 minutes per mile from the start to this point. He's down in the start list as a pacemaker. He's been paid to act as pacemaker and guaranteed he would stay out in front for the first 15 miles. Well, Pilkington stuck to his task, ran 5 minutes per mile or there or thereabouts. Up to 6 miles he built a lead of 11 seconds, then through to 8 miles he broke that way still further, and that built up to some 25 seconds, and it's grown and grown even more ever since. He's now up to around a minute and a half, and Pilkington having the streets of LA to himself. Looking very strong indeed, Paul Pilkington. Good athlete too. Not that well known over in Europe. 35 years old now. He has been around a long time, but has never really hit the heights in world marathon running, despite his best of 2:11.13, which he did in 1990. Did that at Houston. Very strong looking athlete, Pilkington. Good looking runner. This is Danny Gonzalez, also American. Has a best of 2:13.19. He's in second place at the moment, Gonzalez. He's from Anaheim, so he's a local man, trains at Irvine University, and you can see here Gonzalez trying to build on a break he's made away from a pretty big pack. That pack moving along at about 2:15 pace, 2:13 pace rather, but Gonzalez may have left his effort a little too late because Pilkington's got a very big lead and is still looking strong. You can see that slight uphill grade they've just come up. The first 6 or 7 miles here involves an awful lot of climbing. Then for the most part, the next 16 miles down to 23 miles, it's either flat or downhill. So that was a fairly rare little climb there in the second half of the race. Gonzalez looking very strong there as well, to be fair to him. There's Pilkington. All the attention centred around him. Now Pilkington started the race as a pacemaker. Earlier on in the race, his agent Bob Wood was interviewed, and he did say that yes, Paul was starting as a pacemaker, but had half a mind to carry on training. He has been training with Ed Eyestone. Ed Eyestone, though, suffering from a groin injury further back in that pack. This is Emma Skownish, As you can see, winner of 5 Italian National Marathon Championships. She was 40 years old just 5 days ago, Skalnish, and a very useful athlete indeed. But she is in second place and a long, long way behind Olga Appel of the USA. Appel has only been an American citizen for some 3 days. Formerly a Mexican. Skalnish, though, still running strongly here, although her personal best was set back in 1988 when she finished second in Chicago in 2:29.46. She's run an awful lot of marathons over the years. Ran 4 last year: Barcelona, Turin, Berlin and New York. And to her credit, at the age of 39, she finished 6th in New York in 2:35.02. And if you saw that on Eurosport last November, you'll remember that New York was very hot, very sticky conditions. And that's not a bad time at all in those sort of temperatures. Well, now you can see Gonzalez has been joined by Barzaghi and Ahmed Salah. Barzaghi, they're wearing number 9, all in white, is a 25-year-old Italian. Has a best of 2:10.29. Had a very good run in the World Cup last October in San Sebastian when he finished 8th in a race won by Britain's Richard Nururka. Now what I think has happened here is that these 3 men have realised that Paul Pilkington's going to go the whole way. As you can see, they've got, well, around half an hour of running to go, and Pilkington hasn't dropped out where they expected him to, and they've had to start pushing the pace along during the 3rd quarter of the race to try and close down that gap. You can see that's a very big gap they've opened themselves on the chasing pack. But Pilkington still looking very strong out in front. There is Pilkington. In 1990, when he set that personal best of 2:11.13, it was an improvement from 2:15.36. So this man, born in Japan, very talented indeed. And as I said, 35 years old. Well, a lot of racing experience on top of those shoulders. Comes from Roy in Utah. Has been training, as I said, with Ed Eyestone. And said before the race that Ed Eyestone is in great shape, and that if Ed Eyestone's groin, his adductor muscles held out, then he'd have a good run. Well, Eyestone said himself that if his groin was okay up to 3 miles, then he'd continue. And he still is back in that pack, so obviously it's not giving him too much trouble. Pilkington here, though, far from a full-time athlete, works with disadvantaged children, and has notched up 5-minute miles the whole way to this point. There's the first 3 at 19 miles. Pilkington, Gonzalez and Salah. Salah, incidentally, interesting athlete from Djibouti, set that personal best 2:7.07, the 2nd fastest time ever, back in 1988. Didn't have a great run in his last run, Pilkington. He was 5th in Twin Cities last year. Ran 2:15.56 there. But is running much, much better here. Taking advantage of the conditions, I think, Pilkington. Really is a sterling run by the American, and indeed American marathon running making a bit of a comeback at the moment. Mark Platjes, of course, former South African, won the world title in Stuttgart last summer, and then Bob Kempeinen had a great run in New York back in November to take 2nd place. As we look back now to the women's lead, this is Olga Appel. I told you that this lady has only just become an American citizen, married to an American, but held onto her Mexican passport for many years until last November's New York Marathon, when, of course, finishing in 2nd place rather, she took quite a lot of prize money home with her. 2:28.56 she ran last November there. And the Mexican Federation started demanding chunks of her prize money from big races. In particular, she experienced a lot of pressure after that New York run, so she decided to apply for US citizenship because of that harassment from the Mexican Federation, and she got it very quickly. Has a reputation for starting too fast. Well, Appel here possibly started too slowly. She's trying to pour on the pace in this second half. You can see those splits for the last 3 miles, 5:08, 5:28, 5:32. That's really more a result of the nature of the course. Some of those uphills perhaps slowing her down some 10 or 20 seconds in certain splits. But she did start pretty conservatively, and if she keeps up this sort of running, she's going to end up running negative splits. She's only been running 6 years herself. She has a 7-year-old daughter. Came into this race very, very confident indeed. Beforehand, she was saying she thought she could set a course record. Well, I don't think either of these two is going to, because they've still got a lot of work to do if they're going to close that gap on Pilkington. Sala there doing some of the work in front of Gonzalez. Maybe running into a slight wind here, as you can see. The American tucked right in there behind the Djiboutian. Sala either 37 or 38, he says. I'm not sure which. Officially, in all the books, statistical books, I'm down as 37 years old, but I think I could be 38, he says. I don't think he's too bothered. Still running very, very well indeed. For what is, well, virtually a pensioner in marathon terms. Remember, with that humidity, it's important to get plenty of liquid into themselves. Here's Barzaghi, Italian, in second place at the moment. Quite a flat-footed looking runner, Barzaghi. Just enjoying this downhill stretch. But look at the size of the lead to Pilkington. There's Barzaghi disappearing into the distance as we stick with this bike camera now. And it roars off up the road towards Paul Pilkington, who's still churning out those 5-minute miles. Well, what a huge lead the Americans built up. That really is an impressive buffer. Remember, for the first half of the race, that pack thought Pilkington was a pacemaker. They let him go away as he churned out those 5-minute miles. That's 2:10 pace, remember. They stuck to what was around 2:12 pace, and this is the result. Paul Pilkington way out on his own. And that's maybe a controversial tactic. I'm not entirely sure that a lot of people would approve of that. This race does incorporate the US Championships for 1994. A bit surprising that, as it's only early March, but nevertheless, Pilkington here, seemingly on the way to a very comfortable win in the American Championships. He's got, what, some 18 or 20 minutes of running to go, I would think, if you look at the clock, 1:53 and a half. Prize money here, well, some $12,000 for the winner of the American Championships. $15,000 for the winner of the race, no matter what his nationality, and just a small matter of one Mercedes car given to the winner of the men's and women's races. That totals around $65,000 for any American winner, and Pilkington looking every bit as though he may be just that. Certainly if an athlete can avoid injuries, there's no reason why great running shouldn't carry on right into the mid or even late 30s. Pilkington here, 35, the same age as the London Marathon winner in 1993, Eamon Martin. And Eamon Martin, of course, promising that this year's NutraSweet London Marathon, he too is in very, very good shape. Of course, everybody in Britain looking forward to London, April 17th, the date of this year's race. And a superb build pulled together there, and that really does explain very largely for the paucity of the quality and depth here at Los Angeles. This is Barzaghi, pretty experienced, 7th in New York 2 years ago. But I'm sure he'd have had a lot more company around him during that race than in this. For most of the course, spectators have been fairly light on both sides of the road. And indeed, not many men around him at the moment, as you can see, as he's on around 2:11, 2:12 pace. Well, the 1993 world best came on the 5th of December when Dionisio Cerrón of Mexico ran 2:8:51. Don't think Pilkington's going to manage a time down under 2:10 today, but he's on around 2:11, 2:12 pace, and that's a superb run under the circumstances. I do wonder, however, although of course he's going for the men's US title, why he hasn't saved this quality of run for a bigger event like Boston or London. 23 miles, 1:55.17, so he's got 3 miles to go, and 15 minutes to that, and come up with just outside 2:10, something around 2:11 Pilkington heading for here. Those legs must be getting tired though. He really hammered the first half of the race, pulled right away from the rest of the field. Maybe in his own mind he knew he was going to carry on, but the others didn't. This lady too having to put in a solo effort now. This is Olga Appel, and she's broken right away. Now can you believe this is a mixed race? She started at the same time as the men, and yet she's still on her own at, what, about 2:28, 2:30 pace here, Appel. And that too gives an indication of how poor the quality of the field is in the middle rank. Type of men who should be running 2:20, 2:25, 2:30 just aren't out racing in Los Angeles. Maybe they all save it for New York, the USA's biggest marathon. There have been a lot of marathons in the last few months in the USA. Honolulu was in December, Buena Vista was in January, Las Vegas was in February. And maybe it's a case of one too many for the USA. Pearl is coached by her husband Brian, who is an American citizen himself. And together they've done a very good job indeed. Apparently she idolises Joan Benoit Samuelson, who won of course the 1984 Los Angeles Olympics. And this race should have started and finished in the Coliseum, but it's suffering from earthquake damage. Well, we'll be back in a minute. Please stay with us.
Four up-and-coming young stars take on the world's three top players from the United Kingdom, John Parrott, Jimmy White and Steve Davis, in the European Snooker League. A weekly rendezvous with the best of international snooker. Young talent face-to-face with the champions. Snooker, the European League, Tuesday 11 p.m. here on Eurosport.
Welcome back to the Los Angeles Marathon, reaching its final stages now, and looks like it's heading for a very easy victory for Paul Pilkington of the USA. There's Pilkington, been in the lead from the gun, never wavered in his determination to stay out in front. Indeed, the rest of the field let him go, thinking he was a pacemaker. Taken full advantage of that and built up a very big lead indeed. As you can see, just 2 or 3 minutes of running to go now for Pilkington. At 22 miles, the gap behind him was 1:13. Barzaghi in second place, trying to close that down, but it does look very much as though $15,000 for first place and that Mercedes are going to go to this man. As we watch Pilkington way out in front, let me just tell you that Colin Jackson today has set new world figures for the 60-metre hurdles indoors. In Sindelfingen, he ran 7.30. That is all the more welcome when you remember that just a couple of weeks ago in Glasgow, he was credited with new world figures of 7.35 to break Foster's world record from 1988, but then had it taken away from him when overnight the photo was enlarged and the figures reversed, or changed should I say, to 7.36 to equal Foster's record. Well now, Jackson is way out there on his own, 7.30 in Sindelfingen today for the man from Wales. Other news, and a little more relevant, as we see Pilkington at 25 miles, is that in Japan earlier on today, in the Mainichi Marathon, Kenichi Suzuki won in 2:10.57, Tako was second, 2:11.27, and Pershka of Poland was third in 2:11.45. Of course, some great marathons been run in recent weeks. Steve Monaghetti, just 3 weeks ago, won in Tokyo in 2:8.55 from Belgium's Russo, 2:9.08. So things building up nicely perhaps for London, where of course the Chinese are competing, and everybody hoping new world figures will be set. Well, back to Paul Pilkington now, and it has been a great run by the American. It's just a shame from my point of view that he hasn't had more competition. He didn't save this for a more competitive race, perhaps like London. You can see the clock there just ticking up towards 2:11. He's going to be around 2:11.5, 2:12. Pilkington will be very happy with this. $65,000 guaranteed to him for being an American winner, and that of course isn't taking into account his money being paid for being Pacemaker, so probably around $75,000 for this effort. And at 35 years old, not a bad effort at all. Great shame that the Colosseum can't be the setting for the finish. As I said to you, the Colosseum damaged in the earthquake back in January, and is now unsafe indeed. Apparently it may be demolished. That's the very sad news we hear. The Colosseum may be demolished, in part because it's not used very much nowadays. It's not in a particularly salubrious area of Los Angeles, and the track has been taken up some time ago. So the scene of the 1984 Los Angeles Olympics, not getting a look in this race, and possibly will never get a look in at another race. Pilkington though, coming home, 2:12 approaches on the clock, still running very, very strongly indeed, my goodness. Looks like he could carry on running straight through the line and keep going, does Paul Pilkington. So the 35-year-old enjoying this victory then. 2:11.13 his personal best. He's just outside it here, but still a superb run. The man from Roy in Utah, on the suburbs of Salt Lake City, records one of the easiest victories I've seen in a long time. Time there, 2:12.13 for Paul Pilkington. And this is Luca Barzaghi of Italy. Not that well-known a name internationally, but certainly a man who's been there or thereabouts for a few years. The 25-year-old, about a minute down on Pilkington. He too finishing like a train here, Barzaghi. Getting good reception from the crowd, but my goodness how pleased they were to see an American victory in Los Angeles, the first one for a few years. Barzaghi punching the air as he takes second place, and I suspect wondering what might have been. A hug there for Paul Pilkington from his manager, Bob Wood. And, well, a canny run from the pair of them there. Certainly telling the rest of the athletes that he was a pacemaker. May have adjusted the complexion of the race somewhat. Coming in for third, that's Andrei Krischuk. That's a very late run from the pole. And as you can see there, just nipping third place. Well, a lot of those men left too much running, I think, in the second half. They were watching each other a bit too closely in the first half, and really should have let the running flow out of them more easily, as did Paul Pilkington. He got his just reward. There it is, 2:12.13, the win from him. Olga Appel, just a couple of minutes from the finish line now herself. His last few miles have been in the drizzle, but that would have been fairly welcome in this high humidity. Really struggling now, Appel, working very hard indeed, because I can tell you that she has surged in the last 6 or 7 miles, poured on the pace, will definitely have run negative splits, which, although a great way of doing it, is a very hard way of doing it. And she too, maybe, could have run a little bit faster than this, although I don't think she'll be too bothered. Only 3 days, an American citizen. She is already the Mexican record holder, and well, in about a minute's time, she's going to be the US champion. Equality all the way down the line in Los Angeles, a race which has got its financial problems. Apparently the race organisation owes the city many, many thousands of dollars, and only with a little bit of string pulling is the race able to continue, and the future of the race has to be in question, but that's a shame. It's a race that's been going for a few years now. It's a very fast course, and maybe they should look at just moving their position in the calendar. As we see Olga Appel coming home now. The 30-year-old has to be just about her greatest victory, this. Look at the clock. Is she going to be inside 2:28 or not? Her best, remember, 2:28.56, set last year when she was second in Los Angeles. Obviously a woman that copes with the humidity very well indeed. And Appel responding to this roar from the crowd as she eases through these last few hundred meters, really driving hard with the arms here, those legs screaming for a rest. So, what a good move then for the USA from Olga Appel. Remember, applied for US citizenship because of harassment from the Mexican Federation, and they're the losers. This is the winner. Olga Appel, almost in tears there, with a time under 2:30. Very good run indeed for her, from her. As I said, negative splits. Ran the second half of the race on her own after Emma Skalnish of Italy held on to her for as long as possible. Nobody else really in the race. Indeed, a great shame that the women's race wasn't stronger in depth and there wasn't more competition for the American, who was a Mexican. There is the Colosseum. Appel won from Skalnish and Silvia Mosqueda. Well, that drop of 60 feet in the last 3 miles helped both Olga Appel and Paul Pilkington victories in Los Angeles. Not one of the classic races of all time, but certainly useful running by both of them. Goodbye from me, Tim Hutchings.